If you're looking to start an AI automation business in 2026, you've probably been bombarded with so much information you don't even know where to start. I know because I was in the same position not too long ago. I'm not a guru or a millionaire, well, at least not yet, but I'm finally at a point where things are starting to click. And I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way. So here's a list of 10 things I wish I knew before I started my AI automation agency so you can hit the ground running in 2026. If you're new here, my name is James. I'm a 19-year-old agency owner who, instead of taking the winter break to sit back and relax, I'm seeing just how far I could scale my agency in the next 3 weeks. So if you want to be a part of the journey and see what it's like to build an agency from the ground up, hit the subscribe button. The very first thing that I wish that I knew was not to fall for the business play pretend trap. The core idea behind this is that when you're first starting off an agency or any type of business, you get caught up doing tasks that make you feel like you're busy, essentially doing productive procrastination, where you're picking the brand colors, you're designing logos, or perfecting your bio, or making all your different social media accounts. It feels like you're doing what's necessary to put your business forward, but in reality, it's not really doing anything for you. Whereas doing the hard path, or the path that where you're actually doing stuff that has positive return, is like making sales calls or facing rejection or getting your offer out front in front of as many people as possible. Like, that's truly progressing. I faced this as well at the beginning, where I took too much time trying to make sure that my YouTube bio was good, or that my YouTube photo was good, or different things like that that don't really directly drive to revenue. And especially at the early stages, the first 1 to 3 months of your agency, you need to be focusing on doing things that allow you to bring revenue in as soon as possible. And it's just a quote that I really liked right here, where it just says, "You aren't an entrepreneur until you have a customer. Until then, you're just a guy with a hobby and a nice looking Canva account." The idea behind this just supports everything I was saying, that until you actually have one person at the very least show interest in your service, and for the most part end up buying a service from you or hiring you, then you don't have a business yet. So spending time picking your colors or perfecting your logo and your website, it really just isn't as important. Do these things matter in the long run? Yes, of course. But what we're talking about right now is the very first things you need to be doing when you're running an agency. And these just aren't as high leverage as a lot of other things you could be doing for your business. The second thing that I wish that I knew before starting my AI automation agency was to always run the so what rule. It's very common in the AI automation space to get caught up over explaining the technical aspects of what we do, with technical jargon, just over explaining the LLMs, over explaining the API integrations, the webhooks, the reduced latency, and everything like that. But at the end of the day, that's not what we're selling. We're not selling these technical things. We're selling a solution to a business problems, and AI just happens to be the method in which we solve the problem for the business owners. That's very different than selling an AI solution, because when you're selling the AI solution, you're putting the AI portion first. What we're selling in the case of, specifically for me, I'm selling voice agents that help solve a business problem, which is saving the business owner money by not having to pay anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 every single year in a salary to a real life receptionist. And my receptionist takes away from inconsistencies in their brand voice, inconsistencies in information, and streamlines all the tasks that the business owner wants exactly, that is difficult to manage when you're handling with a real person. If you're selling something like lead generation, what you're doing is you're bringing the business direct money. So things like that, having an automation that directly correlates with a key constraint and a key business issue, is what will help you flourish in 2026. Moving on to number 3, which is the free work desk pile. When I was first starting off my agency, I watched a lot of videos from Leah Motley, Nick Serov, and Nate Herc. And what these guys really recommend is to get your hands dirty, to get your first few clients, offer to do the work for free, and then build up a testimonial, and then build up the skill and the confidence. In theory, this is a very good idea because it's low risk and high reward. So you're getting a high return on investment for your time and your effort. But in reality, these type of clients, the ones that pay $0, oftentimes demand the most. And when you're doing these projects, this is when scope creep comes up, where they're always asking to add more stuff. However, what I will say, an exception to this, is that if the free work is coming from your warm network, that these tend to do a lot better, just because you obviously know the person, compared to being a complete stranger. Because honestly, when you're pricing yourself at $0, they see that as you not being as valuable. People often tend to value things that they obviously pay more money for. Moving on to number 4, which is energy management is more important than time management. This stems from the idea that you start every day with a limited tank of focus and willpower, meaning that you have limited amount of energy to allocate to tasks as the day go on, and this tank just empties and empties and empties as time passes. Meaning that you want to focus on the high leverage, the high stake tasks right at the beginning of the day, rather than waiting as the day goes on where you get tired and then less focused, and then thus forth your output would be worse. Being in school, I had to learn this the hard way. There'd be days where I said I would focus on the agency after school from 8 to 10. By the time I got home and I sat down, booted up my computer, then all my energy was depleted and I couldn't sit down and focus. So I made the shift to knock out everything I had to do for my agency before school, and then I found productivity to increase by almost tenfold. Even if you're not a student, this still applies to you in a different medium. All you need to take away from this is that you need to identify what tasks are the highest leverage and then move those to the start of your day so you can get them out of the way as soon as possible. Moving on to number 5, which is consistency versus calibration. This is a very big misconception that I see, especially in the online business space as a whole, where that we have the false belief that as long as you just keep doing something over and over and over again, that it just will work out eventually, which doing something the exact same thing over and over and expecting a different result is quite literally the definition of insanity. But with that, the way that I like to think about it is rather than just being consistent, you need to calibrate your consistency. So you need to be having a feedback loop. So for every single thing that you're doing, you read the feedback that you get back from it, whether it's a new offer and you're in a cold email sequence, you read the replies, you read if you're not getting replies, you take that as a means to tweak your consistent inputs so that you have a better output that leads to the best outcome. It's incredibly important to remain in a cycle of always learning, always calibrating and adjusting whatever it is that you're doing to the best results and the best outcomes that you want. Moving on to number 6, which is complexity is the enemy of scale. It's very natural to have that developer instinct to always want to add that extra piece of logic or to add that extra node or to do the one thing that will reduce the latency by a little bit or that will increase the response time by 2 seconds or something like that. But in reality, something that I had to shift to was just seeing the automation through the client's eyes and understanding that although under the hood, it would be very nice from a developer perspective, that if it's not directly adding to the way in which the system delivers the result to the client, then it doesn't really matter. Because as you scale these solutions upwards, especially when it comes to voice solutions, which is what I focus on specifically, as you get more and more calls and the volume of calls coming in increases, then there's more things to tweak when you're analyzing the data. And the more things to tweak makes it more difficult to pinpoint the deficiencies in your automation. And a big part of building out these automations for businesses is being able to foster your solutions and to make sure that they're working at the level that you'd promised them to. And just to put it into perspective, some of my most profitable automations are quite literally only 4 nodes that consist of just a simple webhook, ChatGPT summarizing step, and then just an output into Google Sheets or CRM. So it just goes to show you that your automation, your backend doesn't have to be 10,000 nodes inside of N8N in order for it to drive home value. It just needs to make sure to solve the client's problem. That's the point that I'm really trying to knock home in today's video, is that whatever you're doing, you need to be solving a real business problem. Number 7 is just prioritize finding mentors over finding peers. This one is a little bit more specific to myself. With this, it's just because when I first started, I'm a 19-year-old kid. I was 18 at the time, but I wasn't finding too many people that were as serious as me as getting this business started in all the different communities that I was in. So I felt almost like an outsider in these communities because everyone was, for lack of a better word, grown. They were older, but I had a shift in mindset where it was like, why is that a bad thing? At the end of the day, that's not a bad thing because I place myself in these situations where there's people that are exactly where I want to be, that have the knowledge, that failed the same way I did. And then now they can part their wisdom onto me so that I can streamline my process of getting to where I want to be. So just reframing my mindset when it came to that really helped me get one foot in front of the others, to share my mistakes and to get a lot of feedback back from these people, because that's where the real growth happens. Because when you're the smartest person in the room, there's no room for growth. With that, I just want to say that getting advice from someone, or good advice, isn't classified simply by age. The main thing with this point I was trying to get over is that just don't be held up on finding people that are exactly like you or that have your exact story. Find people that have the results that you want and see how they did it, reconstruct it in a way that suits you, and then just go and succeed. Number 8 is a very important one, which is offer validation versus niche picking. When starting, there's a lot of conflicting advice from different leaders in the AI automation space. Some say generalize, find an offer, and then see what people are buying. Others say pick a niche, double down on it, and make sure that you scale it to the best that you can. My standpoint on this is leaning more towards the be broad and figure something out, but start with something at first. Don't be married to the niche, but it's better to know what you're aiming for and what you're going towards. So the framework I have is to find a problem that people are willing to pay, not just a niche that you like. If you have a niche that you understand the problems in, if your dad was a plumber, you understand the plumbing business, you understand the problems that he went through, different things like that, or your mom was a receptionist, you understand the types of things that she had to do and how maybe having an AI receptionist tool would have helped her, or some type of automation, not even specifically an AI receptionist, but any type of automation that would help someone in an industry that you're familiar with. It's always good to start in that niche because you just have that little bit of insider information. But once you find that problem that people are willing to solve, then you validate that someone will pay for it, and then that is your niche. But with that, again, do not get married to the niche, because you're trying to find a solution to a problem that people will buy. And even if you find a solution to a problem that people should buy, they don't always buy it. Or at the very least, sometimes you're not always the best at articulating it and formulating it in a way that makes them want to buy. So you could either switch your niche or just double down on it and figure out how to get them to buy. And both are viable. This is one of my favorite lessons that I learned throughout my whole entire journey, which is that you have to have resilience beyond the money. It's very easy to get roped into these 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds telling you that you can make $10,000 a month in your very first month with this business model, and or make however much money in X amount of time doing this, zero effort, very easy, 0 or 10 hours a week, something like that. But in reality, when you're in the trenches, when you're actually writing your cold email offers, your sequences, when you're building out automations, when your webhooks aren't firing, when different things aren't working, you're sitting there driving yourself insane, then the guarantee of $10,000 a month starts fading, and it starts feeling a little bit more unrealistic from what you were thinking was going to happen, which was you're going to click a few buttons, type some things into ChatGPT, sell it to a business is going to come knocking on your door, give it to them, and they'll give you $5,000. In reality, that's just quite literally not how it works, not even in the perfect scenario. But with that, it's important that you know what you're doing it for. I'm not going to sound like a saint and tell you I don't do any of this for the money and that money is not a thing to me. When you're running a business, money will always be something, but it can't be the only thing. It can't be the bottom line, at least in my opinion, because you'll just get tired, because there are always going to be downtimes. It's just the nature of the universe. With every high, there will always be a low. So there will be a low in your business. There will be a low in your revenue. There will be a low in everything. But understanding what you're doing it for, even if you just take that little step deeper, look inside yourself, even if it's the money, what is the money doing for you that you want it so bad? Is it the financial freedom, giving the life to your family that you want, different things like that? Those are the things that you have to focus on, not just I want to make X amount of money. That will keep you going when you're struggling to figure out whatever it is with N8N or Make.com or retail. I hope you found some sort of value throughout this video, and if you had any other questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time.